Wednesday, and I'm coming at you live from my beautiful home studio behind my bookshelf in my apartment. You know it. To talk to you today about a way that you can make culture easier in your classroom, because we all know that as world language teachers and trying to get as much target language as possible into a classroom environment can be really hard. So today's class is all about how we can use all the tools that ACFTL has provided us to make sure that this goes as smoothly as possible and that it's easy for you as it possibly can be, because nothing about talking about culture or intercultural competence is really easy, but we can eliminate some of the friction around teaching in the target language while still making sure that we are moving towards that desired intercultural competence. So let's jump right in. Y'all, if you are joining me live, put in the comments where you are teaching from. I would love to know where you are watching from. And also, help me out by letting me know that everything is working here. I'm going to be checking and creeping on myself a little bit to make sure that it looks good, but just in case, looks like we're good. Looks like we're good. Make sure that you let me know that you can hear everything and that you can see everything. Now, without further ado, let's jump right into what we got going on today. Because, we got places to go, people to see, things to do, and ways to hang out. Okay, so let me share my screen. All right, so now we're going to be, oh no, okay, which one is it? All right, hold on. I've got to switch something here. There we go. Share my screen, share my screen. Gonna do it, gonna share my screen. How are y'all doing today while we're waiting? If you are joining on the replay, make sure that you put replay in the comments so that I can see your comments later. I can't wait to hang out with you. Sweet. Okay, so this is the right one. We should be good. Are you hanging in there before the end of the year? We're getting close, or you are getting close, because you are doing the real work here. I'm just here to support you, but y'all are doing the real work. Okay, so we are right now going to be talking all about, it's actually perfect that we're ending up on this first. We're going to be talking all about ACTFL intercultural competence tools. This is part 2 of a whole ACTFL tools series. So this is the PDF that we're going to be eventually getting to later. And here's how you can get to it if you want to jump on in right away. If you go to this beautiful website right here, actfl.org/resources/ all that stuff on the end, ACTFL Can-Do statements. Honestly, this is how I usually get to it, is I just Google the term ACTFL Can-Do statements, and it usually comes up as the second or third search term. So you can just click on that if you would like. And after this class, I won't be able to do it right now, but after this class, I'll be able to put the link right in the comments so that you can just click on it. And if you are watching directly inside the event here on Facebook, or if you're watching this later on YouTube, then it'll be right below here. So you'll be set. If you're watching this on Facebook right now, it's already in the event. So you can click on that just to make sure that it's easy for you to get to. But let's jump into, I got some slides for you, so let's go right in. Okay, people están there. Empecemos. Yeah, welcome to World Lang Wednesday. If you are new around these parts, we've been doing this for a minute, so I'm glad to have you join and see what this is like, but I'm excited to be here with you. My name is Devin, and I run the blog and all things teacher resources at La Libre Language Learning, or La Libre Language Learning if you teach Spanish, because I do both. But now I work out of the classroom full-time to support you with things like this. This is class number 10 of curriculum, and this is in a full series of all things curriculum. And today we're working on ACTFL tools. So today I'm going to be talking to you about the ICCS and how to use them to make everything about incorporating culture a little bit easier in your classroom, because there's a lot of friction around this topic, and I think that we can make it easier than we think. Okay, I need to stop shaking this table here. So hey, what's up? I'm Devin. I am a French and Spanish teacher, lifelong learner really, and I used to work in the public high schools in my area around South Carolina. Now I create curriculum full time, and I do consultations for individual teachers, school districts, and sometimes private companies. But my favorite thing to do is to help teachers DIY to put pieces of their curriculum together and help with individual resources as well. And I love to do things like this, which is I do a live class every Wednesday to make sure that you have access to the PD that you really deserve, which is exactly what you need when you need it, and hopefully so that you don't have to travel to get it. You can just find it where you need it. So to find the whole schedule, you can go to this website right here, lalibrelanguagelearning.com/Wednesday. I'm talking fast because I want to make sure we get to what we're getting to, but also make sure that you know that you can come hang out with me every Wednesday at 3 p.m. EST. I'm in the EST time zone, but let's make this a thing. If you are working on your curriculum, especially this summer, I've gotten a lot of emails from teachers recently being like, I can't watch all of your classes as they go live, but I'm going to be watching them this summer. Well, hello, summer friends. It's nice to talk to you here. That's cool. We've got a new one coming out every Wednesday, and I'm going to have a new series for you after this one is done. We're going to be doing this for a while, so come hang out every Wednesday. Now, why did I choose curriculum for this first series that I did? I am also the proud host of Practical and Comprehensible, which is a really unique conference experience for world language teachers. It's a completely free opportunity that's going to be coming your way. Save the date, July 19th through the 21st. And while I'm in the process of organizing the conference, I emailed and asked some previous attendees from last year, what are you hoping to get out of this year's conference? And just look at how many people there said they are looking for help with curriculum and year planning. And I said to myself, well, that's my favorite thing to talk about. So let's make sure that we've got a lot of resources for you. I will be diving deep into that topic as well during the conference, so make sure you save the date for that. But that's one of the reasons why I think curriculum is really important to talk about. But it's a monster. It is a huge topic. So we're breaking it down into little pieces. And today is all about what tools you really have at your disposal to make sure that you're incorporating more culture into your classroom, into your everyday lesson plans, all that good stuff. So with that being said, before we even dive into some of these actual tools, let's set our intention and our action plan, because your time here with me today is precious. What are you going to get out of our time together? It's your most valuable asset. And what are you going to do this week? If it's only one thing. One of the things that often happens, especially when we're watching things in conferences or watching PD that we love, I don't know about you, but when I was in the classroom full time, I was a PD junkie. I used to look things up all the time and go down all kinds of rabbit holes. But I had to make sure that I set an intention and an action plan for what was maybe one or two things that I could really do at the end of watching a video like this, knowing that the time that I spent on this wouldn't just be some notes that ended up in a filing cabinet or on a messy laptop, desktop somewhere. So what's something that you are going to do after you watch this training? Think about it as you're watching this, because you don't need to feel like every idea is for you. Pick out and hold on to one thing that really speaks to you today. And I'm going to ask you again at the end of class what that thing might be. So be watching for it. Okay, so here's the first question. It sounds like a big one, but I promise you. What is your end goal for teaching a language? You're a very capable teacher. You honestly probably could have taught a bunch of different subjects. What drew you to teaching a language? Put in the comments below. I'd love to hear your answers. What was your end goal for teaching a language? For me, I knew that teaching a language opens up so many doors. It opens up also, it just brings down a lot of barriers between people and allows you to not only understand yourself better, but understand the world better and the way that the world works. I remember so many different experiences that I've had throughout my life working in an immersive target language environment, living in a different target language environment where I had to stop and question things that I thought were just absolute truths about life, about the world, that just happened to be reflections of my own culture. And that is what I hoped to bring to my students and to my classroom every day, was for them to have a safe space in the experience where they could explore that and wrestle with that a little bit. It was way more than coming out of class being able to use a language, which of course is the end goal. But for me, it was also to make sure that they could use those language skills in order to find out more about the world and have really informed opinions about the way that the world worked, and to understand that the truths that we hold as absolutes are not often absolutes. They're really a reflection of the culture that we were raised in. And now I have the real question for you, the reason that I asked you this. When you ask world language teachers, I find that most of them have something along those lines. They want to expose people to the beauty of traveling, to all different perspectives that they really can be a part of and immerse themselves in if only they knew a language, to have a deeper understanding of the world. So here's a real question then, because at the end of the day, we have a job to do. We have to evaluate our students on their progress in this. And culture and intercultural competency is a huge part of learning a language. Because if you ask most language teachers, that's kind of the reason that they do what they do, including me. So what's a better way that we can do this? How can we eliminate, it's a tall order, but how can we eliminate subjectivity around evaluating that? Because if that's the reason why you're here, the reason why you like teaching a language, the reason why you feel this is your calling and it's important to you, shouldn't there be a better way to see if it's working? I think that there is, and that there are tools out here that can really help you with this. And as soon as I learned about them and figured out how they actually worked, I used them in my classroom a lot. I'll be the first person to tell you that not every tool out there made by ACFTL is something that you can use day to day in your classroom. It's not, because it's not really meant for that, right? Some things are meant to help guide instruction, just as in general, towards a more progressive path. Some things that ACFTL puts out are meant to make sure that we are going in a more research-based direction. Some things are meant to help with our day-to-day lesson plans, and some things are meant to elevate the profession, and even more things are to make sure that our curriculums are using the most professional and up-to-date language as possible. But the ICCs, or the intercultural competencies, and all the measurements that we use for them with ACTFL, this is one of the tools that I started to use. I definitely wouldn't say that it's every day when I was in the classroom, like in the thick of it. But now that I work almost exclusively with curriculum, I use them every day. They are one of the tools that I use every day. And I don't say that about all ACTFL tools. Like the proficiency benchmarks, I use those definitely when I'm checking my work, but I use the ICCs almost every day when I'm looking at stuff. So here's the answer for you. Something that can help us to do this, to eliminate subjectivity around evaluating whether what we're trying to do is working. This is just fancy language for saying, are we actually helping students to move beyond their boundaries of what they find to be like culturally normal? Are we actually moving past that? Because there are lanes, there are little circles that they move past. Are we actually doing that? Here's how we can do that. Use the same language, use the same measurements to see at what level students can interact. And this should honestly be even longer: can interact, can identify. And then there are two other ones that we're going to look at today as well. So let's jump on into something here to give you an example. Okay, so the first thing here that I want to show you as to why this is really helpful is one of the reasons I became a language teacher is probably because of my experience living in a different country and having this immersive experience as a kid. My first experience of school was actually in Japan. My family lived in Japan for 2 years, from the time when I was 3 to 5. So you can imagine that was very formative in my school experience. And my whole family went to Japanese school, and I had to learn Japanese really fast in order to survive in that environment. And it was not at all by any means surviving. It was thriving. It was so much fun. But, you know, I was 3. I was a little language sponge, and it was everywhere, and I needed it to even, you know, get around the school environment. But these are the things that I thought was normal about school until I started going to school and we came back to the States. So this we're going to use as an example. Let's say you are teaching Japanese. These might be some things that you know to be true about school and that you are trying to impart on your students, maybe from an American background, from a Canadian background, from a European background, whatevs, wherever you're teaching from. But let's say you're teaching Japanese, and these are some things. These are, of course, like my real life experiences in a Japanese school. Fukami Yochen when I was a little kid. And so these are the things that I remember about school and my experiences there. Something that I always thought to be true about school when I went there is that everybody went to school when they were 3. Like everybody in my neighborhood went to school when they were 3. And we all every day had time set aside to clean school. There were no custodians or janitors at my school. All of the kids did all the work. And we also were, I mean, like we did everything. Like we cleaned toilets, we took care of the grounds, we did all that stuff. And I think the older students did some of the more laborious work, I guess you could say. But I remember very vividly like scrubbing floors, cleaning toilets, pulling weeds, like as a 3 and 4-year-old. That was part of our day. We would do it every day after recess. Something I also remember is that it was really common to exchange gifts. I thought it was really cool, of course, because I was 3. So that was like a part of the normal everyday thing. When my grandparents came to visit, my teachers made a gift for my grandparents because they knew they were coming to visit. The teachers made gifts for parents, like on back to school night, and they exchanged gifts. That was a big part of it. There was also a couple parts of the year, I remember 1 or 2 in particular, where I don't even remember what the festivals were called because I was too young to remember. I just remember the fireworks and wearing a kimono and thinking everything was awesome and bringing the tatami mats to school and my mom dropping me off, is that we would have school-wide sleepovers. I was so excited to have sleepovers with my friends from school, but my teachers were there, my principal was there, and we lit off fireworks as 4-year-olds. You're probably like shaking right now if you teach 4 and 5-year-olds, imagining what this would be like in an American school or I don't know, anywhere else. But I had a hardcore sleepover with all of my teachers and principal and everybody from my school. And I think some of the parents even came too. And there were all kinds of events. We were fed dinner and we all lit off fireworks and watched like a big fireworks festival and had a big dance. So you can just imagine how different that is. We had a school-wide band that I was in as a 4-year-old. I played an instrument in the school-wide band and I had music classes every day. And we also had a play as part of as a pre-K student, we had our own little play. I even remember like the cool costume I had. I got so mad when somebody made fun of my costume. Ooh, so mad. I also remember often playing with my principal at recess. Like he would come out during recess and he would come and play with us. Like he would help us. And one of the things we used to do all the time is we would gather seeds. He would give us little seed packets. We would gather seeds from under the trees. I don't know. I just remember that. And being surprised that wasn't a thing that we did at school in America. I was like, why don't we ever see the principal? The principal would come and do stuff with us all the time. And I learned to swim at school. There was a giant pool there. There's no parental supervision or anything. Extensive gym and recreation with like all kinds of activities. And something that's very different from American school, which I think shows a lot of the cultural difference here, is that there were a ton of competitions. Like we would have races all the time. We would have competitions to see who could finish their work the fastest. We would have competitions, like school-wide sponsored competitions to see, like when we learned to swim at school, the reason we learned how to swim is because we were going to have a race, like a bunch of 4-year-olds racing. Like, I don't know how serious it was. I just remember that it was a race and it was important to me. Now, when we came back to the States, the weirdest part for me was that I had to wait another year to go to school, because in Osaka, everybody went to school like as soon as they could talk, like 2.5, 3 years old. But in outside of Philly, where I grew up, you had to wait until you were 5. It's like, what? That's weird. So I was kind of mad that I couldn't go to school. I was like, wait, I'm ready for school. I've been to school for a long time. That's so weird. So you can see like I didn't have a lot of intercultural competence for me being in my home culture of America. There was lots and lots of play, like class all day was just play. It was just play, 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 play. And you know, like lots of social emotional learning and stuff, but like lots of play. No official gym class, lots of reading and learning letters and alphabet. And my teachers and my family were separate. And I remember being weirded out that there was people who did the cleaning for us, because I remember doing that. And that there were no school-wide activities, like we were considered too young to participate in things like that, so we didn't do it. That wasn't really weird to me, but I definitely noticed it when I was older. And that pre-K and kindergarten programs were separate. They weren't part of like the larger schooling system like they were in Japan. And sadly, that holidays were celebrated at home with family. So you can see, I mean, you all are familiar with like what school really looks like here. You might not be familiar with what school looks like in Japan. So these are some of the experiences that I had. And this is really the heart of, if I were a Japanese teacher today, I unfortunately have like zero competence with Japanese anymore because I forgot it when I came back to the States. But if I were teaching a unit on school in Japan, these were some of the things that I would want to impart as different. But my focus in here to kind of elevate the content is, the whole point is, it wouldn't be to really share fun facts. Like my whole purpose would be to see if by sharing some of these things, and of course by trying to do it in the target language as much as possible, is how far can I move a person's journey out of the circle from my way and your way to there are multiple ways of experiencing school as a child. And that's just one example, but there are multiple ways of having family dinners. There are multiple ways to shop. There are multiple ways to bargain with vendors to get things. There are multiple ways to invite people to your house, that kind of thing, instead of my way and your way. That's really the whole point of intercultural competence. And I would argue the point of language class in general. So if we use the same language means, we can measure how far along your students are in understanding, identifying, and participating in those differences. And that's what the ICCs are really for. So what we're going to do, using a little bit of this example, is we're going to see if we can figure out a few simple ways. We don't have time to talk about like all the ways you could do it, but I'm going to give you some examples of how you could integrate some ICCs seamlessly into your lessons, just make a few tweaks, and into your curriculum so that you don't have to feel like you're putting culture in the corner anymore. This is like one of my favorite phrases. If you've seen one of my videos before, I say it a lot about culture. This is something that I feel like hurts a language teacher's soul, is that so often our curriculums are just friggin' jam-packed with language goals that we have to put culture in the corner. And it's sad because our goal is really to get to intercultural competence, right? Let me know in the comments if you've ever felt that way. If you've ever felt like you had to put culture in the corner, put a yes in the comments below if you've ever felt that way, because I know I have. So fast forward to my experience, and this is just my experience, working with schools, being a teacher, and then helping other people with their curriculums. This is usually what school units, in my experience, look like, coming from a place of how do we do intercultural competency in a school unit. It doesn't feel that different. So that's why I showed you the whole experience of Japanese schooling, because it truly is different and does reflect a lot of cultural differences between, in my experience as an American society and Japanese society. So this is what it looks like. If you look at schools from a target culture, and then maybe you might look at some differences in schedules, you might look at some differences in teacher and student interactions, like in this example that I gave you here, You might notice that the teacher and student interaction is much more frequent, and it's also much more close knit, like tied to the family unit without being intrusive or part of the family unit. Like, you know, teachers and principals aren't over for dinner by any means, but I would say that what you find in Japan is you have this much more community-oriented view of school where the parent, the teacher, the principal, and the student are all four equal parts of an important process. And that's not really represented in American schools. Like in American schools, it's like school life, home life, and they're two very separate arenas that we try to keep as separate as possible, except when it's time to work together. And we do that in order because we have different cultural representations of what school means to us, neither of them being good or bad, just different. And what you can also see in a lot of these school units is the difference in teacher-student interactions is kind of approached on more of a surface level because, like, what else, how else are you going to approach it, right? So today I'm going to show you a different way that you could approach it. Then you might even talk about, like with culture in your school units, like you could easily talk about building and location and how that's different, because that is definitely some tangible products, practice, and perspective of cultural differences. But I would say that because of this specific piece, that lots of culture is usually saved for maybe like a town or a food unit, because it's just so much easier to pull pieces out. But I wanted to pick school specifically today because there are ways that you can use ICCs in a school unit. Intercultural competence, this is a shift we need to make. It's embedded in everything that we do in world language. And when we see it that way, it'll be a lot easier to stop putting culture in the corner. All right, so now that you've heard me babble about that for a while, let's talk about how we can actually make this happen. The intercultural communication benchmarks. This is what you can use. The intercultural communication and intercultural competency, all those ICCs. This is how you can make all of this come together in your classroom and be a lot easier for you. Now, before I show you these, why should you care? You should care because this is going to finally show us, specifically with the interaction piece, how we can both better teach in the target language and evaluate student target language use in regards to culture. Bam. So we no longer have to rely so much on English in order to talk about cultural concepts or present them. We can talk about culture in the target language by using this cool one at the bottom that you see here, interact. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do now is I am going to jump from Canva, which is what I'm using to present, also a great presentation tool for you. And I'm going to jump into the web page that I gave you here. Okay, so this is the can-do statements. Let me close out of this right here. The can-do statements here. And that didn't do anything, did it? Okay, cool. And we are going to move. If you scroll down this page, you'll see the can-do statements, da 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 da, and you'll see all of the language goals. And then down here, you'll see intercultural communication. Right here. This is what I'm about to click so that we can get into it. And then there's also another one, intercultural communication reflection tool, which is something really cool. We don't have time to look at it today because I wanted to make sure that our class stayed within the time frame, but this is another cool thing to look at where your students can use to see where they are at in their journey from your way, my way, to there are multiple ways. Okay, let's jump into this here. On the first page of this beauty, you're going to see all the proficiency benchmarks, okay? The ones that we're used to. We're going to stick in the novice realm because that is where the majority of classes really are. From my audience surveys, most of you are teaching levels 1 and 2, and then we've got some people in the 3, 4, and 5. But most of you are teaching novices, and like a few are in the intermediate range. But let's hang out with novices for a sec. I also like novices the best. They're my fave. And let's look at here, the whole intercultural communication piece. Okay, so this is where things get interesting. You might be used to the products, practices, and perspectives. they're still here. They're just in more detail and easier to use, I think, because they get really to the heart of the matter. So for intercultural communication, this is something that I recommend that you put in the heart and focus of your unit and your curriculum overall as maybe a level 1 or a level 2. These are the things that you want, these benchmarks. Okay, so investigate. This is kind of like the products piece. Oh, and practices. In my own and other cultures, I can identify products and practices. See if I can highlight this. Yeah, to understand perspectives. In this beautiful sentence, you see how all 3 of those are connected. The next one here, this is the money shot. This is the real good one here. Interact. I can interact at a survival level in some familiar everyday contexts. Really helpful language. So let's see how we can really use this to our advantage. Okay. And you'll see that it goes to advanced, superior, and all those good things. Intercultural communication. Let's get into these. So another one that we have here for the ICCs. Let's get a little bit deeper into investigate and interact. Both of these have 2 subcategories, products and practices for investigate. So in this one, I can identify some typical products. I can identify some typical practices. And of course, it's always going to be about familiar everyday life if you're a novice. But I mean, look at this for interact. This is the one I really want to show you. This is going to make your life a lot easier. This is how we can help to incorporate the language and very essentially the behavior pieces of interacting in a language is this. I can communicate with others from the target culture in familiar everyday situations. So this is where you can look at the tasks that your students are accomplishing with their language and be able to evaluate whether they can actually accomplish that task or not and whether it's at the right level for them. Using memorized language and show basic cultural awareness. Now, compare this to the one for the next level up of proficiency, because sometimes we tend to I don't know about you, but I used to always veer into too advanced of an intercultural understanding. I don't know, maybe, did you ever do that? I used to always do that. I used to always dip into the intermediate, even in like level 1 or level 2. And sometimes some of your students are ready for it, but not always. I can converse with peers from the target culture in familiar situations at school, work, or play, and show interest in basic similarities and differences. Real easy to get sucked into that, right? But it tells you right there that that's actually an intermediate skill. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to show you that, is because one of the things that we get hung up about in teaching culture and why we sometimes put it to the corner and why it's easy to do that is because our goals are often in here. So they don't line up with our novice communicative goals. Our students can't achieve them in the target language. So instead of bumping down to a more appropriate, reachable in the ZPD, if you will, language goal that actually has to do with interaction, we just cut it out altogether. And this is a better solution. And this is a good one too. Okay, so behavior. I can use appropriate, rehearsed behaviors and recognize obviously inappropriate behaviors in familiar everyday situations. Game changer, right? Game changer. Now I'm going to show you quickly what some of these look like on an everyday basis, because this is obviously this is what I talked about. You're not going to use every ACFTL tool every day, right? Let's be practical. Okay, so you might use this as a guide for you as you're making maybe a unit map or something like that. You're not going to use it every day though. This bad boy right here, you're going to use this every day. Okay, can-do statements. Here is what your intercultural communication can-do statements look like. I use these every day. Let's look at some examples here. You're going to customize this with specific content at the right level for whatever you're teaching about. Now remember, we're teaching about school unit right now in our little example, the differences and similarities between Japanese and American school systems. So for investigate, you might have, I can identify some elements of a classroom. Interact, I can answer some simple questions about my study abroad plans. Maybe you're doing a shopping unit. So apply this to your shopping unit. I can identify locations to buy something new and how culture affects where people shop. That's how you get some perspective in there. And then the interact is I can use rehearsed behaviors when shopping in a familiar type of store. Cool, right? Okay. So now that you've seen what the tools look like, and of course, there's far more information for you here and far more examples, make sure you check out this document from ACFTL. Let's jump back in to where we were, and I'm going to show you here how you can use this tool in an example. Okay, so from our school unit, this is what I would do. If I was crafting a school unit, which I am for my own curriculum, this is what I would do is I would put at the top the curriculum benchmarks for my novice level class is I want them to be able to investigate and interact at the novice level. Okay, so survival, familiar, everyday context. They should be able to interact relatively without, causing any kind of awkwardness in a Japanese classroom. Even though they're not always going to make the right choice, they should be able to at least see where things are going and kind of adapt. They might still think that things are strange, but they're not going to make any waves. That's really like the novice everyday level. And then the daily lesson can-do statements, and what I'm about to show you would be a compare and contrast lesson. Maybe you're looking at the differences and similarities between American and Japanese school systems. Here's what I would do. I took this exact as a screenshot from what we were just looking at, as I would be able to investigate in my own and other cultures. And like I would put this on the board somewhere as my can-do statements. You can use this as standards for evaluations. If people are coming in and out of your room, you can put these at the top of lesson plans, all that good stuff. And this could apply to maybe not even just a lesson, but maybe a whole little mini unit, whatever you want to do. In my own and other cultures, this is the exact same one we looked at. I can identify some elements of a classroom, a school schedule, or levels of schooling and how they reflect the culture. For me, what I would do is I would edit this a little bit to reflect the differences in Japanese schooling. And I would say, in my own and other cultures, I can identify some elements of a classroom, a school schedule, and some similarities and differences between student, teacher, and family relationships and how they reflect the culture. Interact. I can answer some simple questions about my study abroad plans. What a great task to use to see if your students really get the differences between the school systems, but without having to, I guess you could say, force or kind of make up a school scenario. Like you don't have to do that with something like that. That's really cool. Okay, here's a sample activity that I have for you. Now, you might be thinking, like, that's cool and all, but that's really only going to help me for when I'm making lesson plans. Here is how these help me in my everyday creating of teaching materials. So if I'm doing a new school unit activity, I want it to be as much in the target language as possible, but still reflect differences in the culture, products and practices that lead to perspectives and a student's ability to appropriately interact and recognize appropriate or inappropriate behaviors. Now, imagine that this is all in Japanese, that this is a novice low, novice mid activity. I would even put maybe like a little word bank there for, I would probably put the word, learn, sometimes, and celebrate. But I would assume that a lot of those other, or maybe sleep probably, but the other words would be part of my unit. I, at school, I play, instrument, custodian, ABCs, like those are all very common words and functional chunks that would be part of a school unit. So my activity, or this could even be like a test if you wanted, activity, whatevs. Like you can make this a speaking thing if you want. Mark true or false, or if you wanted, you could mark this US or Japan. So let's play a game. Put in here which one you think it is. I sleep at school sometimes. Do you do this in US or Japan? I celebrate at school sometimes. That could really be true for both, but I used to celebrate at school all the time, like big national festivals. The next one, I play with the principal. So imagine that this is in the target language, and then your students are marking just simply whether they understand it or not, and also whether they're really understanding the embedded cultural content of that with an answer like true or false, or US or Japan, something like that. The next one is in a pre-K thing, I play an instrument. And you could change this, of course, to reflect maybe an older audience. There is a custodian. That one's a gimme, right? That's probably the biggest difference. And I don't know about other schools. That was just the one that I went to in Japan. I'm by no means an expert on Japanese culture. I'm just telling you about my experiences. And the last one, I learn ABCs. So the cool part about this activity is that like this took me 2 minutes to whip up. You could put this as a warm up. You could do anything with this. And you don't need some sort of newfangled way of teaching in order to use these ICCs. They're actually going to guide the things that you're already doing, but embedding a deeper, richer cultural experience into the activities that you do every day. Simple true or false activities in the target language. And of course, you could do this with pictures. You could find a cool clip and do a movie talk about something like this and have this be a follow-up. Oh my gosh, it could be so many. I just wanted to give you a simple example. This is based on novice ICCs of the whole identify and interact piece. And the best part about it is that now you can use a target language to help you talk about culture. Okay, so let's get at them. Let's talk about what we got. Put in the comments below. What do you think? How can you use an intercultural competency, an intercultural communication tool this week? Or if you've already wrapped up your year, you're getting close, or you just ain't got the energy for changes right now, no worries. This class is here for you right now so that you can be in a reflective mode for next year. What's something that maybe might help you for next year? So remember I asked you at the beginning of class, I'd be asking you something that you could really use. What's one thing that you could use next year? Or maybe next week if you're teaching a culture lesson. Maybe you want to do a daily lesson with an ICC Can-Do. Or maybe you're working on your curriculum guide this summer and now you want to use an ICC Proficiency Benchmark. Maybe it'll help to really clarify where your students can be at, what they can see as an understanding of the world, and what might just be too much for them right now. Let me know in the comments what you're thinking, what's going to work for you. And especially if you're in the replay live, let me know too. Y'all, that's class today. So let's see how we can wrap this bad boy up. The first thing here is what's next. We have got classes until June 16th on curriculum. And then after that, we're going to take a little break and then we're going to shift into something new and exciting for Wolang Wednesday. But make sure that you get the rest of the schedule so that you see what's coming up your way. You're going to love the topic for next week. It's one of my favorites. It's all about how to decolonize your curriculum. I'm pretty sure that's the topic for next week, June 9th. So make sure that you check out the schedule. You can download it from lalibrelanguagelelearning.com/Wednesday. Also, want to make sure that you know about this resource. I talk about this at the end of all of my curriculum classes, but this is here for you to help you and make sure that you have everything that you need to at least get started with your curriculum map if you need it. So if you go to lalibrelanguagelelearning.com/SC, you'll get a link to a free unit-based curriculum map. It's sponsored by the state of South Carolina. It was a South Carolina project and it's proficiency centered. It's completely proficiency and ACFTL aligned. And it's for all languages and all levels: Chinese, German, Latin, French, Spanish. I believe that's all of them. I'm not sure. But it was a huge team. It was me and 80 other fabulously talented teachers who came together to put this plan in place so that you would have everything accessible at your fingertips and free. So I'm shouting about it from the rooftop so that you have what you need. so that curriculum's not as hard for you as it often is for world language teachers. I don't want you to have to work harder than you need to or spend more time than you need to. You already have, oh my gosh, so many demands on your time right now. So check out that curriculum map. It's got unit maps. It's got full lesson plans ready to go for you, 4 for each unit. And it's got an IPA if you want to check that out. And most importantly, make sure that you save the date for July 19th through the 21st for Practical and Comprehensible, which is a free conference coming your way. I have over 20 speakers lined up for you now. The registration page is going to open soon, so make sure that you are on my email list. You can join it at lalibrelanguagelearning.com/toolkit. And you'll get a bonus download with all of my best ideas and strategies for switching to proficiency, the best way to do it and in what order, because order really matters for that to make it easier, so that you will not miss out on exactly when that switch happens. Making the switch to proficiency. That's what I'm thinking about. So that you will not miss out when that registration page opens, because it's going to be such a party. I know you're going to love it. And if you loved this class, then you're going to love the entire big giant Mama Jamma workshop that I'm going to teach about curriculum and all of the pieces and how you can put them together in that conference, as well as, of course, the 20 plus speakers that are going to be there for you. So thank y'all so much for sharing your time with me today. I'm honored that you chose to spend some of your afternoon with me after your long day teaching, and I hope that you have everything that you need from me to get started on your curriculum. You can always reach out to me here, leave a comment below. I am happy to hang out with you and answer your questions. And otherwise, I will see y'all next Wednesday, and save the date. Again, July 19th through the 21st. It's going to be a party. You're going to love it. Bye, y'all. Oh, wow.